How do you think like playing in groups or whether sports or music helps you become a better team player when it comes to your ability
Obviously,
as
it
it helps
helps a
others?
lot. I think it helps majorly, but I think it helps a lot to understand yourself
Hmm.
because you understand and you learn how you connect with other people
How you
as a
communicate.
team.
I'd like to welcome you to the Corner Office Chronicles podcast. My name is Byron Benton, affectionately known as Byron the Product Enthusiast. This is dedicated to product management and entrepreneurship. So please, lend an ear, perhaps two. Tune into today's episode.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Corner Office Chronicles podcast. My name is Byron Benton, and I am your host. Today, I have a special, and I do mean special guest. His name is Oscar Cartagena. He is Bill Gates with a goatee, especially in Latin America. He has revolutionized in his own way education, technology, and he's bridged it together. I want to introduce him, everyone. How you doing today, sir?
I'm very good, my friend. Thank you for that kind introduction. I never saw the resemblance, but it might be uncanny.
No problem, no problem. You have a unique perspective and revolutionary in your own way when it comes to technology. So I want to introduce you, and if you don't mind, the first question: how did you get involved in education and technology?
Well, I come from a technology background. I studied computer science, began working on my first website, I'd say about 1996. By that time, I was living in Venezuela. I was born and raised in Venezuela, in Caracas. And, you know, I had a really hard time actually with education, high school and university as well. And eventually, I just worked a lot and grew professionally. And then at some point, I started thinking about, this was probably almost 20 years ago when I had these first thoughts about how is technology going to change education. So back in the day, I was thinking from a gamer perspective, you might say. I was doing a lot of video games. I was basically raised, and I learned English thanks to video games. And so I thought back in the day about how do we create a gamified system that can help education not be so boring. So fast forward, say 15 years later, and we have the tools to actually make that happen. We have the social dynamics in place to actually make that happen. 20 years ago, thinking about gamification on a gamified platform was something that was kind of far-fetched, especially when you're thinking about implementing that in the education. But nowadays, it's completely everywhere. Everything is gamified, right? So that's far easier. And now we have immersive technologies and AI. So we have the right tools to actually revolutionize education right now. So we have the tools to make education not boring and useful for the next generation of professional workers, because what we're trying to work on today is going to affect the workers of tomorrow, right? So if I'm trying to make a better, say, high school experience or higher education experience for my son, I want him to be all that he can be as a professional by using technology to make his process of education easier and not harder. There's this weird correlation in having a hard time and studying. It's like they're very closely linked. It's like you cannot go through college without having a hard time. And I think that we should definitely change that. I mean, it's good to have challenges, but learning should be fun. Learning should be something that you really want to do. It's not something that you have to do. And this is something that comes from school days. So there's a lot to change. So there's a lot to work on as well. So, working with technology, working with experiences and emotional connection and understanding how we as humans connect with each other and with knowledge, um, it became kind of, logical to make that jump and that connection between education and technology. Plus, um, I met my business partner Antonio
Hmm.
La Rocha, and he comes from the other side. He's an educator that came into technology, so we kind of found ourselves smack in the middle, and it's been wonderful, because he has all the pedagogical skills that a teacher has, and I come with all the technology, so it's a perfect match. And we both share the same vision of how education should be or could be, and the changes that we have to implement to get there. Not only from how do we teach and how people learn, but also how can we make the educational process broader for people with certain learning disabilities, for example, or certain physical um, disabilities that find college education like extra cumbersome because of this things that we're going to keep seeing more and more. So there's a whole conversation about learning disabilities in college and universities and how our modern society and the early access to technology in kids are basically raising ADHD young adults. So when they get to college, they have a lot of issues with dealing with the process as it is, that's not being changed in the past 200 years.
Okay.
So we need to start thinking about how we're gonna not catch up, but change things, not thinking from how do we make up for the lost time, you might say, for the time that we have not managed to get our things well, together. um, but how do we think about education towards the future, right? How are we getting those critical skills of the next 25 years
Yeah.
out there in those young adults
Yeah.
when we're thinking about higher education, obviously?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it got there. Um, I mean, it's been a long road to get to that point and to, basically develop the ideas that we're working on. There's a lot of different areas and subjects that come into place, not only from a technological perspective, but also from a like interpersonal, social, emotional perspective, pedagogical, and security as well. We have to think about privacy and security and how does that affect the current and future systems.
Right.
So there's a lot to think about and to mush together in a way that makes sense for institutions to be able to use these technologies in a positive and ethical and well thought of way.
Okay. 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 Let me ask you. Let me ask you. It's because it's so as you were speaking, I like to consider myself a conversationalist. You mentioned three, four things I kind of want to, and I'll try to remember them all. But the first one, um, you mentioned the learning system. How how far have you come as far as technology, and was it hard to embrace different technologies such as VR, AI? Was it a seamless integration, or was it difficult to get those?
I mean, I think that it's difficult in the sense that it's difficult to implement within an institution because teachers do not have the right tools or the right instruction. Basically, they don't study this in college, right? How to bridge technology and education. So there's a lot of teaching to do. There's a lot of training in the process. So that makes that part of implementing in real life kind of has a lot of friction because there's a lot to learn before you can actually use the right tools in the right settings. But besides that, um, it's a very interesting journey when you start to think about how to think spatially when you are taught and you learn on a 2D way, right? You take a quiz. How do you make that quiz 3D?
Mm,
And instead of being a quiz, how do you make that an experience
mm,
that has a narrative within it, right? So, in
mm,
a way, by creating this thought pattern, right, on the teachers as to how to teach, you're also solving another issue that we're faced with today with AI. Is that how do you teach kids things that are useful when the whole educational system is based on knowledge hoarding and just the repetitiveness of it and remembering things.
mm,
When you kind of frame education within a narrative that it is experiential and with certain emotional connections, then that knowledge gets passed on a lot better. You have 70% more retention when
mm.
you're using VR.
Yeah.
So the thing that's it's a caveat there is that we often see the discussion about using technology in education maybe as an A or B. It's like very binary. It's like you either use technology or you don't. And I think that is a very harmful approach because there are complementary things in the sense that you need to have traditional education, but with layers of technology that can help you make your job better as a teacher, right? Hence, it will be better as an institution. So, what we're trying to achieve is to have teachers more free time so they can be more human in their thought in their teaching process and be have time to connect more with the students and less time on doing repetitive things like evaluations and things like that. How do we enable these teachers to use these technologies in a positive way, and that requires for them to know things. So who trains them? So then, following this path of answers and questions and answers, sorry, you end up creating different products that kind of start to make that funnel complete. So we're now working on the Multiversica Academy. Besides, having the pedagogical model that is Multiversica, um, just because we need a tool to be able to teach in the way that we want to teach.
Mm,
So we are taking an approach that so far I'm calling it the polymath teaching approach. Um, there's probably a technical name for it, but I have not gotten there yet. But the idea is that you need to learn from different aspects of life, not only from only technological standpoint or only psychological standpoints, but you have to take into consideration the whole holistic approach of many other things that are in place, which are emotional, which are, security, pedagogical, and all that. So how do we teach? How do we make courses that can teach in that way, right? So we create new ways of thinking and solving problems. So it's this whole, you know, convergence of creativity, problem solving, critical thinking, and different paths, you might say, of knowledge that everyone can achieve.
yeah. Oh, oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So we mentioned the use of technology used with the average student, but also people with disabilities as well. And I only mention this because you mentioned you know, regular kids and kids with technical ability learning disabilities. We're all human, right? So let's speak about people with learning disabilities. How has VR and AI helped them? Is it harder for them to learn, or is it easier? Or
Okay, so first things first, I mean, we need to understand what certain learning disabilities are, right? Like say like ADHD.
mm,
What are the main problems there? There's obviously attention issues. There's also kinetic issues, and
mm,
there's also learning like issues. So I think that you have like those three or maybe four main pillars of ADHD in particular. So how does XR technologies work on those pillars and how can they help? Um, First, you have to understand how a non-neurotypical brain experiences the experience of university, right? All the tasks you have to do, all the things you have to keep up with, and the cycle are usually pretty long. So it becomes really hard and becomes a burden to actually study and be able to keep up if you have this learning disability, quote unquote. Um, so BR, for example, helps a lot in many different levels. I'm gonna name you a few examples. For example, let's say that you are within the autistic spectrum, right? So when you need to focus on a specific task, it helps when you use headphones, for example, noise canceling headphones, and you use a VR headset with a software that's well thought of and well planned out, where you can practice endlessly certain task, right? So you get many benefits from doing that. Is that not only you learn by repetition, but you don't get exposed to your peers on your repetitions, right? So now that comes also as a solution for people with disabilities, physical disabilities, that they may be maybe they're not comfortable with practicing in class because everybody is doing it differently, right? So they have the option to do it virtually, and that helps a lot with their confidence as well, because they learn to do something that they practice in private and then they can do a class in a better way. Um, so you can fix, or not fix, help in attention. You can help obviously in the way of learning, that it's more gamified and more entertaining through narrative or through other different types of exercises. And you can also cover kinetic issues. You could use, you know thinking out loud. Maybe you can use the VR controls as something that you can do with your hands, and that can generate things within the application, or whatever. There are so many ways of gamifying an experience, be that physically or mentally, that I think it opens up a lot of possibilities. So there's a lot of things that are being studied at the moment to actually get real life results as to what's going on. But BR and XR it's been used in education nowadays a lot, especially augmented reality, for example, and in initial education. You have a lot of books that are used in schools that have augmented reality. For example, here in Chile, there's a company called PlayQ and Calligraphics that they publish books for kids 4 to 6 to 8 years old that are all augmented reality augmented, basically. So you have these augmented books for kids where you learn the ABCs or learn how to write, and they help you with that. They have like an AI assistant that will help you. So it has this cool features that I think makes it a great product. But then again, you kind of crash into how things are done. We are, as a species, very comfortable in our comfort zone. And I think this happens a lot within the educational system, is that this has been how we've been doing things for the past 200 years, and it's worked fine so far. Why should we change it?
Mm.
So the answers to those questions, I think, are on the studies that are being done at the moment to actually, have solid scientific and academic foundations to make these claims, and have teachers and institutions feel more comfortable about embracing these technologies for
Okay.
teaching.
And to add to what you said, I think it may possibly need to be changed because I think that the world is changing every day. It's not 1930 or whatever anymore. New technology has come, so revamp may very well be needed. I hear about places such as Google, companies such as Google that's having it where you get certifications that maybe the average person doesn't have to pay 40, 50, whatever a college degree costs nowadays. So there's definitely going to be a revamp in the infrastructure. If you don't mind me saying, you're a very good orator. I haven't heard one but and no stutter, no nothing. How did you become such a great orator?
I don't know. I guess I always had it in me. I've always been good at talking. I don't know why. To be honest, I have no idea. I have that skill within me, and I just managed to start utilizing it in the past, say, 6 years, more or less. Um, that I actually started pursuing more of speaker role.
Yeah,
Right. So nowadays I do a lot more speaking engagements, and leading the association as well has put me in many places that I have to speak, either at Congress or Senate. So you either ship in or ship out, right? Basically.
yeah,
So but I do feel, looking in retrospective, when I look back in my life when I was a young kid and young adult as well, I definitely had it in me. Like, for example, as an anecdote, I've never been involved in a fight in my lifetime, ever. I've never
never,
had a fist fight,
not
ever,
one, not
ever.
one.
Not once. Not once. Why? Because
Right.
I always talked my way out of all the things that ever happened to me.
Mm,
Of all the things that ever happened, of all the places I've been, where I've been, I've had people come and try to, you know, hit me, but I've managed to talk them down. So
wow.
I always had the skill of talking, so I guess I started utilizing it in a more professional way, as I reached an older age, and I also think that I can add to that you know my life as a performer. I'm a musician as well, so I think that helps a lot in how the confidence in how I present myself. You might say, even if I make mistakes, I have no problems with that. And I think that it's being comfortable with what I'm doing, what I'm saying, what I'm thinking, because it's consequential. So I think that you also learn that when you have 20 plus years on stage, is that, I mean, it's you are the product in a way, right? So whatever you are, it's good.
Yeah,
Whatever you are, it's good, even if it comes with certain flaws.
definitely,
And I
definitely.
and I love that about humanity. I love that about being human. I've always loved it, even as a musician. I've always loved the imperfectness
Yeah,
of us, and I've always loved that, to actually enjoy things not being perfect.
yeah,
Because yeah, I mean, perfect is for robots.
yeah, yeah. Speaking of being a musician, what instrument did you play? Are you a singer?
I'm a drummer and a bass player and mostly a DJ
Okay,
and
so let me
music
ask you.
producer
Let
as
me ask
well.
you.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. I played football and I played a little bit of bass guitar myself, and I played in bands and such. How do you think like playing in groups or whether sports or music helps you become a better team player when it comes to your ability
Obviously,
as a
it
helper?
helps a lot. I think it helps majorly, but I think it helps a lot to understand yourself,
Mhm.
because you understand and you learn how you connect with other people
How you
as a
fit in?
team. So I think that you naturally understand if you are a natural team leader, for example, or how is your approach towards working with a team. So I think that maybe it doesn't create things. I think it just reveals them to you, and you become aware of these connections, and you become aware that you can work with other people that you don't know exactly, or that you have a mutual goal but you don't like them personally. How do you manage that? I think that all these little details that come into place when you're in a band, or you're in a football team or whatever team, basically a band is a group that's a team where you have differences, and most of the time you'll have even a discussion with the guitar player say or whatever, but you still got to play the music together, right? So I think that you learn a lot from that experience, and you find out if you have, the qualities of a leader,
Yeah.
if people follow you or not, and you get that when you are exposed to a big group where that can shine. If you're always alone and it doesn't actually, happen because it's just you. So that's one of the downsides of being a solopreneur, for example,
Yeah.
is that you have no one to contest
Yeah.
whatever you're saying. I mean, it could all be a lie,
Yeah. A little
um,
disruption is good, right? A little.
but you need people to question you and to question everything. I think it's very healthy to be questioned.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. Let me ask you, when it comes to questions, etc. Let's talk about your company. Now you have a boutique company, right? That assists with education. Have you ever thought about creating your own school, or maybe going to other schools and showing them how you
I mean,
do
that
things?
is something that I've thought about, mostly thinking like towards the future. One of my kind of weird, odd dreams is that maybe I'll end up creating a whole methodology of teaching like Montessori or Waldorf, that instead of going back into using just wooden toys, we can go into the future and just use like cutting edge technology placed in the right time, in the right hands, with the right goals, and then you'll have a far more advanced society. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not. I don't think I'm there yet. I don't think I'm there yet from a knowledge perspective. I think that we still need more time to understand what's going on, how it affects kids. I think that we're still in the time frame of consequences from previous technological advancements like the mobile phone. So there's a lot to learn from that experience, that we are still starting to see the consequences of that, so we can learn from that before we implement other technologies that will definitely change the the landscape. It would definitely change how we learn, how we teach, how we interact, how we interact with our world. So this is huge. I mean, where it's going, it is huge, because we will have the ability to interact with our environment in ways that we've never even thought of before, and
Mhm.
that's wild.
It is.
How we're going to manage that, and we're what, 10, 15 years away from that, from actually having this convergence of virtual reality, you might say, or the digital realm or layer with our physical realm, and we have that point of convergence to a wearable device.
Mhm.
And that's going to be awesome, because we're going to have access to so much information live that is just insane. We'll have our own AI agents that are going to help us in everyday tasks. Uh, you know, it's really exciting from one side of the coin. It's really
Really, really, really.
scary
Yeah.
from the other side of the coin, right? Because you
Exciting.
get a lot of benefits, but you also get a lot of bad things that are going to be a consequence of that. For example, layoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's going to be heavy on the future,
Yeah.
and I don't know if we can manage to upskill the workforce to manage to not you know die in that process, basically, or have a really really awful time, because we are going through, and we will go through something very similar to what happened with the Industrial Revolution 200 years ago. It's
Yeah.
going to be very, very close to what happened then.
I agree.
And I don't see a way that we can, you know, not have that. That kind of sucks, but it's just the way it is. I don't see a way that we can lower the threat level or the gap from the technocratic technological elite and the rest of the world. I mean, this gap keeps being bigger and bigger and bigger. They're drifting farther apart, and that is not good. Definitely not good, because you have such a disparity in power and and the capacity of producing things is just insane. And
I agree.
we need more regulations in place.
Yeah, and they're gonna come, and who knows? You might be the reason for some of these regulations. You know the thing you said, maybe an odd idea. It's not odd. We visionaries. Let's change the how platforms operate. We can do it. You're already doing it, so you inspire me. Let me ask you, because this Zoom is gonna cut off in 7 minutes.
Okay, no,
What
you froze. It's my connection. Damn, it's me.
can you hear
I'm
me?
sorry. I lost you like for the past 10 seconds.
Can you
My
hear me?
bad.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, we have 7 minutes. We have to wrap up because the Zoom is going to cut off.
Yes, let's
What
wrap
advice
up.
what advice do you have for future visionaries, entrepreneurs?
A lot. A lot, I guess. But I mean, I think that the principal thing is learn to collaborate with other people. I think the future is based on collaboration, not on individual growth. Um, Individual growth will come as a consequence of positive collaboration with your environment. In that environment includes people.
Mhm.
So be kind and think about the future, and think long term and not so much short term. Now, as for like something that you can start doing now, is start learning a lot of different things. I would recommend to step out of the specialization mindset and walk more towards a polymath um, mindset, where you want to learn about everything, and everything should be interesting and foster your curiosity into knowing as many different things as you can. Then you will never ever have any issues,
Mhm.
because you always have something to do, and you
Wonderful.
always have something to add to society and to share with other people, which is, I think, it's very important for us as a species, to be able to share not only our wisdom, but whatever we produce, either with our minds or our hands, to be able to share it with other people. I think it's crucial for us to know, for our personal well-being. So think about it in that way, and yeah, just be the best that you can be, I guess.
Okay. What about
Not be afraid to step out of the comfort zone.
yeah. Okay. Okay. So what about for people that think, oh, I need $10,000 to start this business or whatever? Do you think people can start on a shoestring budget and then work their way up? Would it would
Yeah, you can start bootstrapping anything. I mean, most business can be bootstrapped, which is starting out with zero capital. And you have a lot of AI tools at your disposal nowadays that help a lot in building a business case, building a business model, helping you out with marketing strategies, helping you out with content creation. So I think that nowadays there's actually no excuses to go out there and start building your future in a way. Not to sound cliche, but you had to start someplace, and you have, it's out there. You just have to go out and get it.
yeah.
There's no other way to go around that. If you really want to do something, if you really have a passion that you think that you can add to society through that, then there's no excuse to not do it, or at least try it out. The only way to know if your idea is going to work out or not is to do it.
Okay.
So just do it, as they say in agile startups, fail, but fail fast,
Okay.
so you can move on to the next one.
Okay, let me ask you. Until you write your book, we spoke last time. Until you
Yeah,
write
yeah,
your
bro.
until you write your book, what what books do you suggest, people that want to be entrepreneurs and visionaries read, and podcasts as well?
I started reading a really good book actually today, that's called The Polymath,
Mm,
by a guy called Wakas Ahmed. Amazing. I think I'm very vested in the idea of polymath learning, so I'm reading a lot about that. There's also another good book called Blood in the Machine. Um, that's an excellent book about how the Industrial Revolution came to be and the consequences it had on the people. And there's another one that I can't recall the name now. There's also another one very good on AI. It's called AI Snake Oil. I think
Okay.
it's the name. Well worth the read as well. There are many, many, many interesting books out there. There's also a very good book from David Chalmers, philosopher, that's called Reality Plus: The
Mhm.
Problems of Philosophy in the Virtual World, something like that. That book is amazing if you're into philosophy and you know how the philosophy major questions stand today in modern science.
Okay.
And yeah, that book I told you about, Feeding the Machine, it's called.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
The hidden human like consequences of modern technologies. That's a very interesting book about how technology uses a lot of people that a lot of no one knows that they exist.
Wow.
So yeah, those
I'm gonna look
those
into those.
books are worth the read.
I'm gonna look into those. I'm gonna look into those. Let's say if people want to see your work, how could we see
Well, you can go into my
education?
personal website, which is oscarcartagena.com, or look for my company, which is Augmented Experiences or Multiversica, or just go into my LinkedIn. Maybe on your podcast, you can place the link, and
Yeah.
that would be the easiest way to reach me.
Or somebody can find you by your name, right? Just your name.
Yeah, Oscar Cartagena.
Okay. Okay. Well, listen, and I really do, and I chase you down for this. There's some perseverance in this. You've been great. This particular uh, episode touched on so many things, even the educational system. I think that's a unique perspective, and I think that you are a visionary when it comes to that. So, I was
Thank you, Byron.
not really joking when I said, you could be the Bill Gates of this. Just keep going.
Let's just hope that's a vision, not just an
Yes, sir. Yes,
idea.
sir. Yes, sir. So
Thanks
thank
for
you.
having me, Byron.
Oh, no problem. Anytime, sir.
So thanks for watching today's episode of the Corner Office Chronicles podcast. Again, my name is Byron Benton, and I am your host, affectionately known as Byron the Product Enthusiast. Please like, subscribe, and tune in. Until next time, thanks for watching.